We were talking a little bit about the competition between Trey Hendrickson and Marcus Davenport. At this point, who do you see having the advantage there?
Um, I mean, I think if they're starting a game, I think you still probably go with Davenport, but I think Trey's probably had a better camp and better preseason showing, and that speaks well for this team because I mean, we didn't really talk a whole lot in the offseason about replacing Alex Okafor, but I mean, he was really a big part of their defense. He's with Kansas City now, so I think the fact that they have two guys that they feel are viable at their positions is big for this team at that position.
Davenport's in his second year out of Texas San Antonio. Obviously, they move up to get him at the first round. Well, what's the true expectation for him in year two?
I think, I mean, just talking to Sean, talking to Cam, Jordan, all those guys, I think he's going to really make a big step this year, and I think he needs to. I mean, this team kind of rolled the dice on a guy that I don't think many people knew much about, this time, the time of the draft last May. But
yeah.
So I think we need to see some strides in him, and I actually wrote about that a couple of weeks ago. I mean, this is a year that, fans and coaches and everybody should want to see big things out of him after, with the risk the Saints took in taking a guy like him.
Rod, another guy that I think the expectation level is going to be high for because of who he's replacing is Latavius Murray. Mark Ingram leaving, a big locker room loss to be sure. But have you been surprised out of what you've seen of Murray? I guess I never – how's he looked – like, can he do that Ingram role? Like, coming to New Orleans, Murray was never thought of someone who could catch out the backfield or maybe the most shifty back. How has he performed this camp cycle?
That's funny you said that because that was the first thing I was going to say. I mean, I think the reputation he had was that he could not catch the ball at the backfield, and we've seen in camp and I guess in one of the games, we've seen him be able to do that, and I think that speaks well for him. And I think he'll be fine replacing Mark, and I think we've always kind of talked about this offense, with Jared Cook coming on it as well. I think it's just another weapon that Drew has, and I think Latavius. He may not have to do quite as much as Mark did, but I think he'll be serviceable, and I don't think we'll miss Mark as much. I mean, I know we talked about the locker room thing. The team will miss him, that way. But I don't think he'll be missed as much as we think. I think Murray's going to be a guy who can step in and do that.
Talking to Rod Walker.
Good news.
Yeah, no, it's great. And that is in line with a couple other guys that we talked to at camp that are fans of what Murray's shown them thus far. And like we said, I mean, he just looks like Adonis. He looks like a lineman out there that is really fast. Talking to Rod Walker, sports writer for The Advocate. You mentioned Jared Cook. We just talked to Booger McFarland a little while ago, and he was very high on Jared Cook. Do you think that Cook will be the biggest difference between the offense of last year and the offense of this year?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think he's that piece. I mean, we talked all year about we got to find this team has to find a number two guy behind Michael Thomas, and I think Jared Cook just, he lightens that load for whoever those other receivers are on this team, and I think that's going to be really big. And I think it just fits right in with what Drew Brees wants to do, and I think it's a guy that I think he's probably the perfect fit for this team. Actually, I just think that's what they needed, and it'll be able to free Michael Thomas up some more, and he'll be able to free up some of those other receivers up too. So I think I think it's like the perfect fit for this team.
Speaking of receivers, where do you think the wide receiver hierarchy stands today?
Well, obviously Michael and Ted would be 1 and 2, and I think Traquan probably is the third guy just because of his experience. But I still think Emmanuel Butler is going to be a really good guy on this team. We didn't get to see anything in the game. They targeted him 3 times. He didn't have any catches. He had a drop, which surprised me because we hadn't seen him drop many balls, if any, at training camp. So that was kind of a shocker. But I think he's really just made his mark at training camp. And at some point, I mean, you'd like to see that translate over to these games on, these next 2 preseason games. After that, we haven't seen him, but I think Keith Kirkwood is still a guy that can make this team. I mean, he just needs to get healthy, and he's probably my 4th guy. And I'm trying to think who I go up to after that. I'm not leaving off anybody obvious, I guess. I mean that's 5 guys, right? There's
Yeah.
Traquan,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's 5 guys. Yeah. I mean, you have those guys like Steele Grayson, who, he's
LSU guy.
shown his speed. He's shown his speed, and I think another guy is Deontay Harris. But I think I think he'll make this team now. But I think he's probably a guy who's going to be, just basically a receiver. I don't know how much he'll actually have to line up and catch anything. But that's going to be, to me, that's an interesting position with Deontay Harris and Marcus Sherrills. So I think we all had Marcus Sherrills penciled in as a return guy when they signed him in the offseason, and all of a sudden we see Deontay Harris coming in and just pretty much having people on their feet every time it's time for him to return a kick. So
yeah, and I mean it seems like he's maybe not won that battle, but he's getting very close to cementing that win. We're talking to Rod Walker of The Advocate here on Off the Bench, 104.5, 100.3, 94.7 ESPN. Another big offseason signing was signing Nick Easton. Eric McCoy has won that center job hands down. Obviously, Pete and Warford look they're going to be your guards. Who wins that interior swingman job? Is it Easton? Is it a Cam Tom? I know Will Clapp's a long shot. Who do you think wins that kind of main backup? And you know what? We'll extend it to the entire offensive line. Who's going to be the swing guy, and then who will be the swing tackle on this roster?
Yeah, I think Cam Tom is probably, he's probably the guy. And,
wow.
You have a guy like Malcolm Newhouse who he's been playing a lot of tackle in practice when Teron's taking a day off or something, so he may be the other guy. You talk about that center position. I mean, we came into camp thinking that was going to be a battle. And
yeah.
It turned out not being much of a battle. I mean, Eric McCoy's been taking most of the snaps for like the past 2.5 weeks, it seems like, and played and, been with the starters almost every practice. So, I mean, he really must have solidified that, himself, showing himself really early in that position. But as far as our swing position, I think Cameron Tom is your guy, and I think Newhouse may be the other guy. We don't know the status of Ola, and it looks like Chris Clark is out. So it's a position that Sean's trying to find some players. I mean, he just signed Chris Clark, last Monday, and he got hurt. So I think they're still looking for some depth, and these next 2 games are going to be big for some guys.
How would you handle the quarterback reps this weekend?
I think I would put. Well, first of all, I don't think if you want to play Drew and see him hand the ball off 3 times or hand it off twice and throw it once, I mean, that's fine. But I think I would probably start Taysom with the, with the first team just to see what he can do against the, first team defense, and let Teddy play with the second team because, that's one of the things about evaluating in the preseason is just, just because of guys playing with. I mean, you have to look at who they're playing against. That's something I asked Sean about on Monday. Is just how important is that in the evaluation process? Just looking at who the players are actually lining up against. So I think playing Taysom with the starters will be good just to see what he does with that unit because he looked so good in his first 2 preseason games, especially that last preseason game. I like to see what he can do against the Jets' first team unit, and maybe let Teddy play the second half. And speaking of quarterbacks, I thought this team probably should have had. They let JT Barrett go, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought they sort of just needed that third quarterback just so you don't have Teddy and Taysom playing every snap. I mean, kind of taking a risk of one of those guys going down, but. Just a third guy just for the preseason.
Well, and it almost bit him. It felt like it almost bit him last weekend with Bridgewater being sick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just a risk you're taking with your 2 backup guys, especially when you have a backup guy like Taysom who does so many other things for this team as well. That I just think you need another quarterback just to get you through the preseason.
No, that's a great point because Hill promises to be a big factor in the actual offense, even beyond just some sort of backup role. Another position battle, Rod, that a lot was made of coming into camp that has also kind of played out like the Eric McCoy situation is that Nickelback position. Basically in modern football, I think you can just go ahead and say that Nickelback's like a starter, even if it's like the 12th man or whatever. And you brought in Patrick Robinson, the Saints did. They brought him in last year in order for him to be that guy after the successful run that he had to the Super Bowl with the Eagles in that role. But like P.J. Williams seems like he's won that job. How impressed have you been with Williams this camp?
Yeah, PJ's really stepped up, and it was a great comparison with Eric McCoy. I mean, you thought it was going to be more of a battle. It looks like PJ sort of stepped in and won that, and then you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson who could do a little of both. So that gives you some depth at that position, which the Saints haven't really had, and Chauncey can play a lot of other things. And I know one practice Marshawn was out and had P-Rob was playing corner.
Okay.
PJ was playing the nickel. So that's still probably a spot for P-Rob on this team. So this team has some depth, and maybe they keep all of it, or maybe they try to trade something and get some picks or something. I don't know, but there's definitely some depth in the secondary that they haven't had in past years.
Rod Walker covering the Saints for The Advocate. He's on Twitter at Rod Walker Nola. Saints on the practice field today, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Preseason game number 3, Saturday from New York as they'll take on the Jets. Rod, thanks for the insight this morning, man.
All right, thanks for having me on.